Okay, so I need to find the, I think it's a 0.8 millimeter tip. Oh, look at that. First try, 0.8 millimeter solder tip for the Heko. So it is on, it's hot. I'm just going to pull that off. This is going to be hot. So I'm going to replace it with a 0.8 millimeter tip. All right. Sounds good. So we'll put these away. These are all the extra Heko tips. Let this one cool off before I put it back in the plastic drawer, of course. Extra tips for the soldering iron. And I haven't got to use this one yet. I'm kind of excited to use this if I ever get the chance. Have some extra Heko tips. This one is like a 0.6 millimeter, I think. Yeah, 0.6. Kind of hard to see on there, but 0.6. And they got a big honker right here. And this is a 2.3 millimeter inner diameter hole. Kind of see it down in there. Anyhow, been kind of procrastinating. Haven't had a lot of time to do this. But here are the innards of the Sony. I think it's the CCD V701 camcorder. And I'm going to start with the FU97 board. Change a bunch of these caps on this board. It's been a long time in the making and need to get back to it. Finally having a little bit of time to get caught up. And I'm going to have to wash this board probably in the dishwasher. Oh, too far. Because of all this electrolyte that's leaked on the board from these two capacitors specifically. But it's also leaked over here on this connector. So as usual, once I get the caps changed, I'm going to throw this board in the dishwasher. And so I'm going to hopefully replace these two big electrolytics on the board right here. And then these three, that one, and probably that one. I do believe probably that one and that one too. I think these four are tantalum, and I don't believe I ordered them. I did ESR them, and they tested absolutely perfect. But I'm going to go ahead and replace all of the electrolytics on this board and move forward. So I just need to go ahead. I got a big box of parts here. These are all of the capacitors that I did order. A bunch of surface mount caps. And I think this is one of the ones that we're going to be using. 330 at 10. And I think that's probably going to be, yeah, that's that one right there, 330 at 10. And then I need some 220s at 10. So we'll set those aside. Oh, well, look at that. What is this? Oh, look at that, 220 at 10. These are Chemits. And then these are, who makes these? I think these are Panasonic's. I can't really tell on there, but I believe those are Panasonic. Those look like a Panasonic part number ELXV100 331. So we definitely need those. And I did make a little cheat sheet right here. So I've got the 220s, 330s. I need a couple of 100s at 10 and 33s at 10. Look at that, 33 at 10. These are bubble wrapped. I don't know why, but they are. And then what I say, 100s at 10. It'd be helpful if they actually put the value on the package. Yeah, that would really help. Oh, those are 10s at 10. 4.7s at 35. I should actually mark those, which I'll do shortly. Uh, 100s at 10, look at that, there they are, 100s at 10. So I think those are the four capacitors I need to do the FU97 board. And like I said, I tested these 10s and 33s at 10 volts, and they tested perfectly. So we're going to just leave those be. And then I got my other list, which you may have seen from a previous video several months ago before the holidays came and before the accident happened. Okay, so trying to do most of this in somewhat real time because people said they kind of like it. So I'm turning the soldering iron on. get it ready to go, and we'll go ahead and I think it should be fairly easy to do. How did I get the values on those? Oh, those are inductors. Never mind. Sorry, my bad. Those are inductors, so we're not changing those. So, well, let's go ahead and get to it. I need clippers. I need fine needle nose pliers. And so we'll just start wherever. So according to this, my cheat sheet, I do need 2 of the 100s at 10, and those are 100s at 10. Might be kind of hard to see. So let's just go ahead and find those guys. I think it's going to be this one and that one. Yes, 100 at 10. So let's go ahead and change those first. First, I'm going to make sure the polarity is correct on the silk screening, and it is. So let's just go ahead and zip those guys off the board. Hopefully my head doesn't get in the way too terribly much. It's an odd, I have very fine needle nose pliers and they're too fine for that. We'll go with the Magombo. Okay, there's those two. Next, we're going to go ahead and pop out these 2 capacitors right there, and once again making sure that the silk screening is correct. Sony's normally pretty good about it. Haven't had many issues with the Sonys being incorrect. Oh yeah, there's electrolyte under that one. Don't know if you could hear the hiss as I heated it up. Maybe we can use the needle nose on these. And then maybe not. And what did I say those were? 33s at 10. Yes, those are the 33s at 10. And I do believe I ordered 105 Celsius caps, which is what I normally order for everything. I rarely even make an order that are not 105 degrees Celsius caps. It's just like, it's a few cents more. Why even bother with basically...
Lost satellite reception.
Oh, thank you, Lola. I appreciate that. Have a GPS over here charging. Didn't expect her to just spout off like that, you know. Make sure they're down against the board really good. And let's go ahead and what I'm going to do is solder one side. I'm going to push each capacitor up against the bottom of the board. I do have the exposure in auto because I'm doing so much, and I have the focus in auto, so you might see a little autofocus.
Lost satellite reception.
Hunting. Thank you. Once again, I heard you the first time. I don't think I need to acknowledge you. Okay, so I've soldered one side, and then I'm just going to push up from the bottom and push each one fully into place so it's seated up against the board, just in case there are any clearance issues. We'll go ahead and retouch all of these once I've got, see how that one's kind of sitting sideways right there. So what I normally like to do to relieve any stress, I'm going to stand up the second lead on all of these. And then go ahead and solder the unused lead. I can navigate all these other leads. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and, yeah, you guys don't like to hear me go ahead, but I'm going to go ahead and do it regardless. I'm just going to stand these up. That way there's no extra lead tension anywhere. And then we'll go ahead and take off this 220. I should stop trying to say go ahead. People have commented they don't like me to say when everything is working absolutely perfectly. All right, Lola, you are getting on my nerves. Let me know if anyone knows where Lola comes from. We've named all of our GPSs Lola because of this one item. I don't even know why are you even on? Well, you really can't see it, but it's got 3 bars. Why is it saying lost satellite reception? Turn off. Okay, power off. It's an old Garmin I used to use when I ran service calls. A Nuvi 200 is what this one is. Retrieved it out of a car that got totaled the other day. It was in the trunk. So this is a 330 at 10. I have another 330 at 10. Most likely higher quality. So I'm just wondering what is it. Oh wow, that is 105 degrees Celsius cap. Look at the date on that. Don't know if you can see it. 91/22. That's the 22nd week of 1991. So we'll just put a nice little 90 in the bottom of this. And we'll do the same thing, bend these over. And I'm just going to lay it down, solder one lead, and I'll do that thing where I push it up against the board to make sure it's flush. That way it's not all cattywampus on there. Actually, it held pretty good, but I'm still going to push it. Solder the other lead. Actually, I should have stood this one up. There we go. I'm going to add some fresh solder. Perfect. Double checking the silk screening, make sure that the dot is lined up with the negative, and it is. And so this one's getting a Kimmit, which is a good quality capacitor. Oh, I just ordered these things. The date code on these are 0517. And once again, get it lined up where it needs to go. Try to fold these at more or less a 90. Making sure the negative is on the correct side. The long lead on these capacitors is always the positive lead. Bend them over. This one's definitely going to move because it's smaller. Got one lead tacked. Now you can see the angle this one is at. So I'm just going to gently push and heat and then there it's flush against the board. Stand that lead up so it's straight. And then re-bend that one till it's straight. That looks good. I think I'll add a droplet of solder to it just to be safe. The bigger the glob, the better the job, as Adruno versus Evil would say. Okay, so pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and we'll zoom in as far as the autofocus will allow me to zoom. Oh, too far. Back off just a bit, and it should hunt and then find it. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the dishwasher. I said go ahead again, didn't I? Sorry. And looking to make sure that the negative is on the correct side. So yeah, like I said, I went ahead and left these capacitors because they did test good. And I shall insert this into my dishwasher and run a full cycle. I have some dishes to do nevertheless. And then once I'm done with this, we will move on with the other boards that are still in this bag. These might be a multi-part installment per board actually, because there are just so many surface mount caps to change on each board. That's one board right there. And then that's the other board. I may do like all of one value on one video and all of a different value on another video. And then as you can see, there is still another board in the bag to do. So, and I went ahead and I labeled, might be kind of hard to see through there, but all the shields that go on the different boards, I labeled the board numbers on each shield so I know exactly where it goes back together. And I might have missed that cap right there, 47 at 6.3. That's for the infrared receiver module that just smooths out the power supply going into it. I probably have one. If not, we'll get something close nevertheless. Okay, so like I said, next comes the dishwasher. After that, clean it with acetone, and then this board will be done. Okay, a little extra footage. Let's go ahead and test all of the capacitors that came out of this board, including these that were leaking. Just, even though they're leaking, sometimes they're still good. That one's not bad, like 0.25 ohms for a 220 at 10. That's not too terribly bad. I'm very surprised. This is the 330. 7.5 ohms, that thing is toast. Okay, well, so we'll put that one down here in the bad column. And then these are the 100s at 10. 0.8 ohms, I'm pretty good with 0.8. Put that one up with the good. 0.8 ohms, pretty good with that. 4 ohms, and that one is a 33. That one's probably okay. That one is absolutely, well, wait, coming in, my hand's warming it up. 91 ohms, 90, 89, 88. Just the temperature of my hand is warming this capacitor up. So if I short the leads together, we get 0, 0. So we're down to 79, 78. Yeah, well, that thing is definitely toast. For the heck of it, I know some of you guys like to see the new ones tested. These haven't been formed yet. A lot of times capacitors need to be formed, which means adding and removing voltage. So that one's a 0.21, and the old one, I can't remember what it was. 7 ohms. Yeah, way better on that one. Way better. And we'll do a comparison with some of the good ones. So that was a 220. This is one of the other 220s, the new ones. 0.4 ohms. I think the old one was about that good as well, maybe even better. That's about the same. Okay, so for the heck of it, this was the 100. I think these measured, what, 0.89, something like that. Yeah, about 0.8. Just for the heck of it, I'll get one of the new 100s. Leads are touching together there. Yeah, about the same, 0.8. So some of these were good. A couple of them were definitely on the bad side of bad. Get all these put back so I don't lose them and get them mixed up. I'll have to add more drawers to inventory these, obviously. You know, somebody's going to say, why didn't you test the little ones? Okay, we'll test them. Why not? Just pick one at random right here. And that's 6 ohms. Yeah, actually the new ones tested a little bit better. But like I said, these haven't been formed yet. Forming takes adding and removing power multiple times to form the capacitor in place. They'll probably actually come down to a lower ESR once power has been removed and applied multiple times. So as always, I always put all these capacitors, as always I put these capacitors, all the used parts in a Ziploc bag, and I always return them back to the customer when I'm finished. Okay, well, I'm going to call that one good on part 1. This might be a multi-part installment of repairing this CCD V701 camcorder. Okay, here we go. Let's wash this in the dishwasher. Got some Big Clive going on here on the TV. So I've got this board positioned kind of sideways down here in my dishwasher. No, I'm not worried about lead poisoning from the leaded solder. I've got my other dishes going on in here. And I'm just going to put a single pod in here after I get it dried off. I've already got my water heated up. So we'll hit Pro Wash. I do not want heated dry. And we'll hit Start. And we will close it. And then come back when it is finished in a couple of hours. It's energy efficient. So it uses less water, but it takes more time. All right, well, here is the board as it came out of the dishwasher. All I've done is blown it off with compressed air. Just get the moisture out from underneath anything that's on this board. And man, I've got to say, this thing looks... I haven't cleaned it with acetone yet. Acetone is going to get rid of that white residue because that's the flux. I think it attracts a little bit of the dishwasher soap. But all that corrosion that was on the board, all that electrolyte that was over in here, it's all gone right now. This thing looks spotless. I just got to hit it with a bit of acetone. All the corrosion and everything, you can just barely see it just above the 1 on C101 right there. Just barely. But yeah, just got to hit it with a little bit of acetone. We'll clean this thing off, and well, based on the caps that I got replaced with, probably going to be better than new. Anyhow, we'll finish up this video and move on to different stages. Like I said, probably going to be a multi-part installment as I progress through this thing a little bit at a time. Once again, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye. Well, sometimes things don't go just as calculated. So I went ahead and I pulled this. Which one is this? That's the 330 at 10 volt capacitor back off of the board, because after I finished washing it, I was doing this visual inspection. And anytime you see plate throughs that are dark like this, you want to be suspect. And then this trace right here, you can see it's very dark because it had electrolyte leaking on it, and that can actually corrode the trace over time. But fortunately, this one actually does test good, but I'm still going to do a little bit of proactive repair on this. So I know you can't see the meter right here, but if I go ahead and I probe from that point to the third pin, I get continuity beep on the meter. And then this trace right here actually goes to these two plate throughs, and all it does is jumper over to these two plate throughs. So if I go from here to here, I get continuity, and I'm looking at the meter, it says 0 ohms. But still, like I said, proactively, I'm going to run a piece of magnet wire, which is enameled magnet wire, basically from this connection over to pin 3, and from this connection of the capacitor, and it actually ends up on this big land right here, this big ground trace. Now I can't do it on the top side of the board because the shield actually lives right there once it's all put together. There you go. So it snaps in right there. So I went ahead and took a look at the bottom of the board, and you can see once again, I'm not sure that plate through is actually making connection at all because it's so corroded. But once again, if I do a measurement from the positive lead of the capacitor, it goes over to right here and it's perfectly fine. And now that little plate through right there is the one that actually, well, I'll use that as a reference, that actually goes over to pin 3. 1, 2, 3. And there is the 0 ohm beep. So I'm going to run a jumper from over here somewhere over to pin 3, probably landed on that pad right there, and then I'll just run a jumper from here over to right here. Now this actually does go, so I'm doing this on camera, so not really watching what I'm doing, trying to do it blindly. It actually goes right there. So I could actually run a jumper from this point right there over to this lead of this coil right there, and I think we'll be perfectly fine. But this is what happens when you try to restore, well, it's like trying to restore an old car that's been sitting for years and years and you don't know what's going on with it. So yeah, always good to take a close look. I was just getting ready to clean this board with acetone, and then I saw this. And also, I do not like, let me get my test leads out here once again. I don't like, look at all the corrosion. It's brown right there. But I do have good connection. So I may end up just running a jumper from somewhere over. I may just scrape the coating off the board and just run a jumper just from here, like to right here. So hopefully I can do this without getting too much in the way. I've got some 30 gauge wire that I'm going to use. So this is 30 gauge. It's just magnet wire. I got a whole roll of it. Never actually even opened this one up yet. I got like anywhere from 22 up to like 32, I think. So for the small 30 gauge, the small trace, I should say, which goes to pin 3. What the heck? They tied it up on here so I can't get it out. Okay, there we go. So the neat thing about enameled magnet wire is there's the end of it, and oh shoot, my soldering iron went to sleep. Well, this is what happens when you don't edit your videos, folks. Everything takes longer than anticipated. And let's see, we're up to 600 degrees. I normally try to solder at about 800. I know some people are going to be, oh, you can't use 800 degrees Fahrenheit. That's way too hot. Well, I've only been doing it for 40 plus years, so I think it'll be okay. And we're up to 750. Let's go ahead and see. Basically, you don't have to scrape this wire at all. Just the heat of the solder will cause it to 10, just like that. Okay, so we know that it runs from this little plate through, so I'm going to use this solder pad that is conveniently prepared right there. I'm just going to put a quick little dab of solder on it, just like that. Then I like to make my jumpers a little bit long Now remember, this is enameled wire, so it's not conductive until you melt through the enamel. I'm going to bend it over here, and we'll land it over here on the 3rd pin. Now, I don't even know if this is remotely close to being on camera. Oh, it's kind of close. Okay, good. So we'll go ahead and tin up the end of that. There we go. That looks good. We'll add a bit to that pin. And then I'm just going to try to use my fingernail to kind of put it in place right here. Hopefully, there we go. Now it's back on the screen for y'all. Okay, I like that. Okay, now for the other connection from the capacitor, I'm going to have to remount the capacitor back on the board. And then hopefully I can just, yes, it worked, yay. So it's still there, hasn't fallen out yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and solder it back in. I know I said go ahead again, I'm so sorry. And that looks good. And then it actually goes over to this point right here. So I'm going to tin that up right there. And I'm going to use a slightly larger piece of enameled wire at this point. And so I just bought this kit. And it's got, what is this? 28, 26, 24, and 22. I don't think I need 22. I'll probably go with 26 gauge wire. This is part of the switch mode power supply, so I don't want to skimp out on the wire. And of course it's tucked underneath. I don't want too much impedance on the wire is the problem. And we'll try to straighten that out. Okay, that end is tinned. Hopefully it's, yes, it's actually on the screen so you guys can see it. Excellent. And I'm going to go ahead and, oops, sorry, go ahead again. Whoops. And I'll just kind of bring it around town like that. And get it somewhat close over here. We'll trim it. Tin it. And can you even see it? Yeah, okay, there it is. Ooh, hot. And then just to be safe, I'm going to lift this up so it's not actually sitting on the board. I'll do the same thing to this one. Nothing actually goes back here, so as long as it's not actually touching the board, I think it'll be fine. Okay, so we got a couple jumpers on the board to correct for possibly those corroded plate throughs. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean that portion, clean the whole board with acetone actually. So I'm going to add a bit more acetone to my little container. This is a plastic container. It does not degrade with acetone. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there you go, some acetone right there. And I need to get a towel to put down on the workbench. So And I think I'll zoom out just a little bit right here. And hello, manual focus. We'll lock the manual focus in. And we'll grab an acid brush. I thought I had one that I had zip tied. Because the bristles like, there it is. The bristles like to come out of this thing. So this one actually has a zip tie around it to keep the bristles from falling out. And then I fling it off into my trash can under my workbench and just let it evaporate naturally. Well, that certainly looks a lot better on that side. After the zip tie's coming down. No, that's good enough. I noticed after I washed this board, there was a lot of flux that turned white, so I just want to go ahead and just clean some of the areas off here just to try to make it look a little bit better. That red marking right there, I put that on there when I took the board out. The flux is non-conductive, so you really don't have to worry about an issue with it. But there it is. And this is the, what board did I say that was? The FU97 board. FU97, you're the worst. Okay, so I think I'm ready to go ahead and put the cover back on it right here. I'm pretty happy with the results. And we'll set it back here. And where'd my roll of solder go? There it is. This is Kester 6040. This roll is probably 10 years old. Oh no, is it Kester? Yes, it is Kester 6040. I do believe there is another cover that goes on this. Hopefully it'll fit on where I put the wires. Okay. Now let me get back here in the bag of goodies, and oh, there is the other side for the FU97. I did mark it in here, and so that won't fit right now, really. Huh. Now we're going to have to make it fit. So the nice thing is there is a small gap. We'll just heat it up here. So there is a gap right here where the wires go through, so it's not actually touching. There we go. It's got that little hole in it right there for the record indicator to come through. And once I put that down, it'll actually pull that piece out just a little bit. Perfect. And so if you look under here right now, you can see the wire is not pinched. It goes under a relieved portion of the cover. So I'm going to say the FU97 board is actually complete at this point. A lot longer than anticipated, as always when you're trying to restore one of these older units, everything takes longer than anticipated. Okay, so that is the power supply board. That's the easy one. Well, I did not do my due diligence on this little board right here. I just kind of guessed everything would be fine. And unfortunately, I don't have the replacement capacitors for 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. But I went ahead and did the ESR check on them, which I'll show you real quickly. ESR meter powered up, zeroed. So this capacitor right here is a 10 at 16. And it measures 2.3 ohms. I'm perfectly happy with that. These two capacitors right here are 10s at 16. 4.2 and 4.6. Perfectly happy with those. And then this one right here is a, can't even hardly see it. It's a 4.7 at 35 volts. And it measures 3.9 ohms. I'm great with that. But this one capacitor right here is a 1 at 50. Hopefully you can kind of see it down there. And it measures 14 ohms. A little high for my liking, but the good news is I do have the same size 1 at 50. And the replacement measures, well, basically 3 times better, so 4.2 ohms. So I'm going to go ahead and just replace that one capacitor on this board. I did check all of these. Like I said, these are all made by Sanyo, and I do believe they are tantalum caps, even though they look like electrolytics. We'll just go ahead and test them real quick. Yeah, 0.2 ohms, nothing to balk at on that guy. That's a 33 microfarad at 10 volts. This one right here, 0.3 ohms. And I believe that's a 6.8 at 16 volts. This, man, I can't even hardly see it. Something at 10 volts. Can't be too high of a value. 1 ohm. Perfectly happy with 1 ohm. 33 at 16. 0.5 ohms. Excellent. And then this one right here is a 1.5 at 25 volts. And it measures 2.8. I am great with that. So I think I've tested all of the capacitors. This one right there is the only one that tested bad. So let's go ahead and remove that one. Very tiny. Oh, it's out of there. I'll wake up my soldering iron. It went to sleep. And that's a 1 at 50. Sorry if that was off screen. Okay, capacitor has been replaced. And I think I did zoom in on this previously. Let's see how, well, that's as close as I can get without going into the super duper macro mode. I don't see any leakage on this board from any of the capacitors. They look absolutely perfect. I believe this is all flux from when they soldered it right here. Yeah, it's hard, so it's not electrolyte that's leaking. And what's interesting is Sony actually saved a little bit of money when they built this board, because that lead right there is not soldered, but it does not have anything wrapped to it. That lead is not soldered, but nothing is wrapped to it either. And then this lead right there is not soldered, but once again, nothing is wrapped. So those leads of that switch mode transformer are not used whatsoever. There's really not even a label on this board other than SE Japan and a serial number. So I think this might have been sourced externally for Sony. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this back together so it actually fits in this little cradle right here, and it fits face down. Hopefully I can get it to go in there and somewhat cooperate. So it fits in there just like that. Oh, you couldn't see it, I'm sorry. So, okay, so I got it snapped back in just like that. And then it does have one solder pad that attaches the case to ground. Just like that. Okay, well, it's better to be lucky than good. So yeah, did replace one capacitor in this board. I believe this board actually is only used in the camera mode, and I doubt that the customer is going to use the camera. But I did go ahead and replace it and test all of the capacitors. They all tested perfectly fine. I do think this customer is probably going to use this more for playback than anything else. So this one connector plugs in right there, and then this one connector plugs in right there, and then it just, if I can get the wires out of the way, lives right there. And then one screw, and this continues to ground on this, tuck that under there, that continues to ground down into here, as you can see right there. So yeah, ready to go. So I will have to test some of these capacitors, but I doubt, like I said, I don't think the customer is going to use this for recording. I think he just wants to play back some of his existing 8mm tapes. And I did forget to put the insulator sheet back inside here. So we'll correct that error right now. Okay, insulator sheet reinstalled. All the connectors are connected. This one plug right here does go to one of those two plugs on the power supply board where the leaking electrolyte had occurred. So next I'm going to go ahead and probably tackle the AU99. I believe this is the AFM, the audio FM decoder board on this unit, and it needs every single capacitor replaced. And it looks pretty doggone good. Let's try to get focus on it there. I do see just a little bit of corrosion on C460 right there. Hopefully once I get that off the board, it doesn't look too terribly bad. So normally what I do on a board like this is I get my cell phone and I just take a nice picture of the board, and then I'll print it and make sure I can see all the component values, 22, 22, a 1, a 22, a 22, another 1, and just make sure I can differentiate the positive and the negative, because the negative always has this band, that black band on it right there, just to make sure I get everything back in the exact same way that it came out. So that'll be next. Everyone, thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Everyone, have a great day. Bye-bye.